Olá, boa tarde. Sejam bem-vindos à segunda sessão hoje, que vai ser uma sessão internacional. E eu vou aproveitar para falar um pouquinho em português no início, para colocar todo mundo a par do que a gente vai estar falando. E na sequência eu vou tocar o idioma para que os palestrantes internacionais possam interagir com mais facilidade. E eu queria aproveitar primeiro para apresentar o Instituto da Economia Circular de Eletrônicos. Eu sou o presidente, meu nome é Felipe Boa. E o Instituto ele tem dois objetivos principais. O primeiro objetivo é promover e educar sobre tecnologias e software no ambiente de empresas que estão envolvidas com a economia circular. E o segundo, que tem muito a ver com a sessão de hoje, é a prestação de consultoria sobre como abordar a responsabilidade estendida de fabricantes, de importadores, de varejistas e, inclusive, como fazer a operação de sistemas de logística reversa. Esse tema, na verdade, é um tema que, de certa forma, está muito perto do meu passado e essa sessão acaba sendo uma pequena viagem até para o meu passado. E talvez, para explicar isso um pouco melhor, eu tenho atuado no setor acadêmico, fazendo pesquisa empírica, na época justamente numa situação que a gente estava numa situação bem parecida do que o Brasil está hoje, mas dentro da Europa, onde a gente teve uma nova diretriz, a We Directive, que entrou em vigor em 2002. E eu vou falar um pouquinho sobre essa situação que é muito parecida da nossa situação de hoje, sendo que, na época, eu estava fazendo meu doutorado junto com o professor Gutowski, do MIT. A gente decidiu fazer um trabalho empírico, que tem a ver muito com dados. E, consequentemente, essa questão de poder fazer simulações de políticas, de trabalhar com cenários ou estratégicas, como abordar a responsabilidade estendida, faz muito parte da minha atuação profissional. Estou aqui no Brasil faz uns 10 anos, tenho atuado uns 8 anos praticamente junto com a indústria Fox, trabalhando bem na prática aqui no Brasil, trabalhando com a operação de sistemas de logística reversa, como operacionalizar isso, que inclusive foi bem desafiador. E aí eu estou muito feliz de convidar hoje 3 pessoas que estão nesse ramo também muito tempo e que vão compartilhar com a gente como que eles fizeram o setup desses sistemas fora do país. Então vou aproveitar para mudar o idioma e aí começar também já com a introdução desses palestrantes. Well, I was just giving an introduction to everyone here that is participating in the webinar in Portuguese, so it will be easier for everyone to follow and also to have an idea what to expect from our webinar. And I was just talking a bit about our experience in Europe that we had with the WE directive. As a matter of fact, we've been dealing with sort of a similar challenge that we have now in Brazil. And by the time we were pretty much in Europe in a situation where we didn't have a lot of experience, the WE directive came out in 2002, and there were only a few countries, smaller countries, one of which we have a speaker here, that were already experienced or were working in this field, and that were able to share their experience among others. So today I think we're in a somewhat better situation because we have including Portuguese-speaking people that know how to operate these systems, that have experience. And so it seems somewhat obvious that we're going to have the first speaker from Portugal, which is Pedro Nazareth. And Pedro has a very long history, actually, in the WE sector. And what is very nice about his CV, for people that know him, he's been involved also from the perspective of a private organization operating and managing a recycling plant. He's been also working now for over 5 years in the producer responsibility organization in Portugal, which is called Electral. Electral, as he will probably talk a bit about, is not only dealing with electronic waste, but it's been the focal area that he's been dealing with. And just to mention also quickly about his past, he has a education in the engineering, in the engineering, and so I'm very pleased, Pedro, to have you here today. So we can interact on this, and we all know that Portugal is somewhat culturally connected due to the language to our case in Brazil, and we're very happy to hear what you have to share with us today. So I'll give you the words and look forward to hear what you can share with us.
Thank you, Philip, for your nice words. If you allow me, let me just turn to my mother tongue, Portuguese, so I can agradecer o convite em estar aqui com vocês em particular nos sistemas de logística reversa ou de responsabilidade estendida do importador ou do produtor, como vocês aí designam, e portanto é com grande prazer.
Bom, o Pedro está com um pouquinho de dificuldade no momento de entrar, mas não... voltou, então, voltou. Pedro, tudo seu.
Okay. So now, can you hear me in proper conditions, Philip?
Yeah, now it seems fine. It seems fine now.
It was a connection problem. Okay, so now I'm back to English to go through my presentation. Well, I've organized this presentation into main topics. It's 20 minutes, so we don't have time for much. There's a lot to talk about: extended producer responsibility and take-back systems. But I will try to focus in the general aspects on the institution itself, the Producer Responsibility Organization, Eletrônico, and to share a little bit what has been our experience in the setup and in the path that we have followed as a take-back system here in Portugal. And then in the second part, I will dive into the, let's say, the operational side of the business, meaning talking about e-waste collection and recycling, of course, very general about this topic. But first, let me talk a little bit about who we are. So Eletrônico is a producer responsibility organization exclusively held by companies manufacturing, importing, and distributing electronic products in Portugal, which the European legislation designates by producers. And well, I didn't know exactly which kind of audience to expect, but let me tell you what do we define as a producer responsibility organization. And for those who are not familiar with the topic, this emerges from an extended producer responsibility principle, which is a policy principle that allowed to correct the environmental externalities deriving from certain types of waste whose economic value was not enough to pay for its own collection and proper recycling or proper treatment, and therefore to trigger a commercial profitable activity. And so this principle was implemented 20 years ago throughout Europe in different waste streams. And of course, it allowed, once it came enforced in the European public policy or in the national European countries' policy, it allowed to shift economic costs of former collection and recycling, or I would say dumping of e-waste from municipalities to the consumption transaction, to producers and consumers, driving, or at least hoping to drive manufacturers to become more committed to improving the end of life recycling. To make it simple, and just to give an example, collecting and properly recycling an old television is not a profitable activity, and it is very unlikely to happen unless there is some entity to be liable for this activity and to pay for it. This is where producer responsibility organizations, such the one I represent, Eletrônico, this is where we kick in, correcting this market failure and acting on behalf of these companies manufacturing and importing electronic products. Therefore, we take, as an extended producer responsibility organization that we are, we take full operational and financial responsibility on behalf of these producers, with whom we contract compliance for the collection and the recycling of e-waste, but I would add also, because I'm speaking on behalf of Eletrônico, of packaging and batteries waste in Portugal. So this is what we do, okay? We were set up back in 2005 as a not-for-profit organization, an association, in fact, with 44 members, which are very well-known consumer brands of the electronic sector, such as the one depicted in these slides, covering different segments and different sectors of the electronic sector. And of course, these 44 companies were the first to be served by our electronic waste compliance service back in 2006, so 14 years ago, when contracting compliance was made mandatory for electronic producers. But of course, things have evolved since then, and Eletrônico today contracts compliance services for packaging, electronics, batteries, with more than 2,000 companies that all together place approximately on the market 200,000 tons of new electronics, new battery products and packaging being placed on the Portuguese market. So let me share with you a little bit how we got here. And the first thing to tell you is we were several years after our foundation, we embraced a strategy which was to add value to our compliance e-waste or electronic waste services. You shouldn't forget that Portugal is a very small scale country. We are 11 million inhabitants. So let's say economies of scale do matter when you are trying to offer a competitive compliance service. And that is why, after getting our first operating license in 2006 from the Portuguese authorities to work as an extended producer responsibility organization, or a producer organization, we started adding other compliance services to our offer. In 2010, we got the license to start operating as a take-back for waste batteries. And later, and most recently, 2017, we started operating in the take-back of household packaging waste. And just to give you an example of this convenience of this integrated compliance service, today, if a company places, let's say, a mobile phone on the market, we have a one-stop shop of waste compliance to offer to this company to make sure we take back the lithium-ion battery of the mobile phone, the plastic and cardboard packaging in which the mobile phone comes in the mobile phone itself. So therefore making life easier for the company and adding value to the service that we offer. Well, of course, this approach has enabled us to increase our compliance client base from our traditional electronic sector based clients, such as those from the lighting sector, IT sector, large household appliances, air conditioning, etc., to other sectors such as food retail, furniture, textile, paintings, all of these, of course, within the packaging compliance service. Just to quote an example, IKEA or Leader or Lidl, which are very well-known brands, our packaging flagship clients started contracted compliance with Eletrônico only after the one-stop shop of compliance offer was available. Okay. And second, and last, we have been also developing and adding value to our offer, to our clients, aside of compliance. Because I think we need to work out the relationship with companies, to engage with them in this enormous quest, which is waste managed within the circular economy framework. And so we engage with them in communication and awareness projects, supporting their sustainability or circular economy marketing strategies. We also engage with them developing research and development projects directed towards promoting the transition of their supply chains and or their products towards more circular ones. And also, of course, supporting these companies with the administrative tasks that they have to fulfill in the interface with our national authorities, such as the registration or the reporting of their activity. And so, to wrap up, with these initiatives, we have been able to shift some companies' mentalities about compliance. Compliance, it does not only represent the cost of collection and recycling of waste, and therefore what I call a pay-to-forget approach. Compliance can also mean an opportunity for companies with strong environmental positioning and commitment to gain competitive edge over their less eco-friendly competitors. Actually, that is why in Europe these days, there is intense debate of another possible strategy, which is the modulation of the recycling fees according to the environmental profiling of the products these companies are placing on the market, basically making more expensive the costs of compliance of those products which are more complex to recycle. So we are still developing this approach in Europe. Some countries are ahead, of course, as usually, because Europe doesn't speak at one speed only, does not have only one speed. But the most relevant issue for you is to know that there is an outside world of compliance that goes very well along with offering compliance services to the companies. And we in Eletrônico, we have moved along this path. Well, I've been focusing very much on the client side of the compliance services, of course, of the business, the producers, the companies who pay the compliance costs of collection and recycling of waste. But let me now also give you a brief overview of our environment in terms of stakeholders, of our activity, of course, focusing on three of them. And let me highlight, after talking about producers, first the retailers. Because retailers are very, I think in Brazilian is varejo, if I understood well. We have a different word in Portuguese. But retailers are a very important economic actor of compliance because they act simultaneously as a client contracting compliance in relation to the products the retail puts on the market, but at the same time, as a waste collection point in the old for new circuit. Therefore, a very extremely important partner for the collection of e-waste from consumers' home, promoting the substitution of the old for new equipment. Then municipalities and municipality waste management system. Of course, 25 years ago, they were the ones on the field collecting the waste and dumping the waste or doing the best they could with the waste. But they are still today one of the most relevant sources of e-waste in every country. Because they are a very important e-waste, I would say, curbside collection partner, also allowing to have municipality collection points, of course, but they do also, at least here in Portugal, curbside collection of e-waste, of all sorts of e-waste. So it's very important in a take-back system as contracts, not only with retailers in the two functions, as producer and as a collection point, but also with municipalities as collection points, because municipalities, they are, let's say, a very important collection part. Last but not the least, I would like to highlight consumers and companies, because above all, the most relevant stakeholders, in speaking from, let's say, a poor student in the European arena in terms of collection rates, as we are here in Portugal, we are still with consumers fighting the battle of changing environmental behavior. Consumers have to be willing to change habits, to segregate the e-waste in their homes, and go to the nearest collection point, deliver the e-waste. And therefore, we need to act and work very closely in changing let's say, the waste separation habits of these stakeholders. Of course, with all these stakeholders, we have strategies specifically for each group of stakeholders, because we are mandated by our license to develop R&D and communication projects, mostly around, let's say, waste separation and proper recycling. What we have done is we have implemented several of these projects, communication and R&D projects, over the last years, grouping them among 3 different axes that I would like to share with you. One of the axes is very pragmatical, because it's collect and recycle more and better, which actually is our motto, to increase volumes and the quality of e-waste. We are, although after 15 years of experience, still lagging behind in collection rates. Mainly if you compare these collection rates, these Portuguese collection rates, with the European ambition. Second axis or strategic axis for us is improving the operational excellence. Of course, we bring waste, e-waste from of course, other sorts of waste as well, but e-waste, which is the topic, from the collection points to the recyclers. And so we develop several projects aiming at becoming better in doing what we do. Last, but also very important, we have a group of projects directly, most of them R&D, but also some of communication and awareness, directed to support and tease the companies who wish to put environment as a strategic differentiation, let's say, value, and differentiate, of course, from their competitors. And so we have projects that aim at these companies and promote the transition to more sustainable supply chains. Of course, I wouldn't say sustainable products. We have very few, let's say, original manufacturers in Portugal, but we do have supply chains, and there's a lot to be done in the supply chains of these companies to become more circular. And so, well, these are just a few examples of several projects that we have been doing with our stakeholders. And of course, we could then focus and later on discuss which results individually we have obtained with these projects. Let me move on to the second part of my presentation. I know that I have 6 or 7 minutes, but I will be fast and dive into a little bit the operational side of the business, the waste side of the business. And first, let me share with you the simplified version of our operational model. Of course, we have collection points. We bring the e-waste from the collection points to the sorting centers, where we sort the different types of e-waste, and then we bring from the sorting centers to the recycling operator. Of course, life isn't that simple. Our operational model is far more complicated than what you are seeing here, because there are a lot of specificities. Just to give you a brief overview, that when we talk about e-waste, we talk about very different streams, ranging from lamps to screens, to cools, to air conditioning, to TV sets, and all of these specific streams, they oblige sometimes to specific logistics. And then you have also to adequate the logistics to the collection points, because we have several types of collection points. And so, let me just give you a brief overview of let's say, the geographical distribution of the collection points in a very small country, 11 million inhabitants, such as Portugal. We have approximately 6,000 collection points. with whom we have contractual arrangements regarding different waste streams, because we cover 3 streams: e-waste, packaging, and electronics. And with this, the support of this network, and with the support of our municipalities, we have been able to recycle more than 70,000 tons of waste in 2019. Okay. The collection points we have, they range because they are various. This is the specific collection point we have developed, is very much suited to curbside collection of batteries, lighting, and small equipment, small electronic equipment. We use it for collection curbside, but we also use it in shopping malls. Then we have collection points in several retailer warehouses and shops. Here in this picture, you can see depicted a warehouse where we have the whole for new collection of e-waste. Well, we Eletrônico developed a very specific network with fire stations, and we have this partnership with firemen associations, because it's very convenient in the Portuguese cities to establish a collection point in these premises, because they are in the middle of medium-sized towns. They are very well, let's say, embroiled with the population, engaged in the transport of sick people. And so they are a very convenient partner and a very important collection partner to us. We also developed our collection network in schools. Children, they are very prone to contribute to a better world and to engage and to go back to their homes and find all the equipment and bring it to school. Of course, we have different communication and awareness campaigns that promote this kind of collection. And as mentioned before, municipalities and the municipal waste management system, which is an aggregation of municipalities in Portugal, from where we collect in these more industrial 30 square cubic meters containers. Of course, we have different types of containers. I will just go very briefly with you, but so you can have an idea. We have from containers that just we use to store and to facilitate the development of our collection network, to the curbside collection, containers specifically for lamps, for small equipment and for companies, for printer cartridges, also for batteries, and also for lamps, of course, and to the different types of geometry and technology of lamps, LEDs, CFLs, and all the different sorts you can imagine. And so therefore, all the collection points, they are served with specific collection logistic boxes. We have the sorting centers, and the job of the sorting centers, very briefly, is to allow to separate the different streams of e-waste. Of course, this is a very simplified version. Let me tell you that we have more than 15 streams of e-waste, because we segregate mobile phones, laptops, the different televisions, flat screens and CRT televisions, the IT and the telco equipment. So there are more, let's say, granularity in the different e-waste streams that we sort out in the sorting centers. But just to give you an overview of the streams we talk about. Going to my last slides, just to tell you that we have been having, I would say, consider a fairly good progression in terms of collection results. This is what we have been doing since 2015 up until last year. We have increased volumes of electronic waste that we have been able to collect. Regulation has changed quite a bit here in Portugal, but we are on a steady slope of increasing collection rates, although, again, lagging behind, far behind the objective that we have at the European level. But if collection is not so good, I would say, and to end, recycling rates, that the recycling rate that we have, meaning the content of material that in fact we are able to recycle per each individual e-waste stream, I would say it's fairly good. So we have very well equipped recycling operators certified by a standard that we have developed here within Europe called the Willebeck, which is now translated in Senelec. So standards that were developed to let's say to secure proper collection, proper transportation, and proper treatment. And so I would say that we have a fairly good Portuguese network of recyclers with whom we contract, which allow us to get this level of recycling rates that is shown in this slide. With this, I conclude my presentation. Of course, I will be willing to take any questions. And so, obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing and specifically for doing the homework also, especially focusing on the collection, because collection has been quite a topic in our conversations here in Brazil. We've been discussing about what are the best channels, how to get actually e-waste collected, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this in the Q&A session also, and like how you got people maybe to discard a little better or discard more correctly, and what incentives you were able to maybe put in place to improve that recycling rate. I think it's also important maybe to mention that you've been a bit defensive on the numbers and mentioning that you're lagging behind, but it's important to say that the goals in the European Union are quite high. They've been recently also augmented, and so I think given that you, for example, the situation that we have here where we're starting with a somewhat more modest regime, where we want to come up to 17% within 5 years, which is a number that is compared to the volume put on the market in 2018. So I think there's quite a lot to learn still from you, as you've been above these targets that we want to achieve within 5 years. So I think your insight is very much appreciated, and we'll get back on that. Now I would like to introduce our second guest, or our second speaker. And our second speaker is Andreas Röttelsberger. Andreas has been the initiator of the Swiss take-back system called SENSE. And SENSE is pretty much one of the maybe founding members of the idea of extended producer responsibility within Europe. So by the time, for example, that the WE directive got in place, the SENSE system already had about 12 years of experience, as it's been initiated in the 1990s. And so our next speaker will not only be able to talk about how they dealt with the evolution of the recycling system within the time frame of 15 to 20 years since the directive, but is actually counting on 30 years of experience, and has also been one of the main institutions that we've been able to interact with by the time that we've done our studies, getting empirical data specifically with the SENSE system. And so I'm very happy to introduce Andreas. Andreas is actually a lawyer. He has his own law firm since 1981. And he's been initiating the SENSE system. He's been the president of the SENSE system for 30 years. He's also been very active in the WE Forum, which is a producer organization that is uniting about 40 systems within Europe. So Andreas has serving in the board, or has been serving in the board since 2003. He's been the president of the WE Forum for 5 years. And Andreas, we're very happy to have you here today to share with us your expertise on the specific market and tell us how these challenges are dealt with in Switzerland. Warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this nice introduction. Thank you for ZS for the invitation to this first International Congress for Circular Economy in Brazil. I'm very happy to be here and to share with you the experiences and some learnings that we have been done in 30 years. Of course, I will not give a complete presentation about what is SENSE today, but I tried to pick out some specific factors that I would consider them as key for success and for our system. Now I tried to put in my, this is not working. Okay, I hope you can see that. So I will tell you something about what is Switzerland. I will try to make a short design of what is Swiss recycling market. Then I will introduce Sense as a take-back system. I will make some remarks on the importance of quality and control of re-auditing. Then one of the key we have surely is the finance. How do you finance your system? And then some figures of Sense e-recycling. So what is Switzerland? Switzerland is covered, maybe you know, 70% of our area are mountains. We have 1,500 lakes. We have 4 languages: German, French, Italian, and our 4 language, which is Cuisine. Then we have, maybe you know, we like chocolate. Every Swiss eats 10 kilos of chocolate per year, and we have our flag as a Swiss flag, as you know it. So this we are. How is Swiss recycling market? And maybe one of the most important things is how can you create demand for waste? I give you an example. You have this old appliance, I throw it away, and in the moment I throw it away, it has a negative money value. Okay? So it needs to be picked up, to collect, to be transported, to be recycled, to be depolluted by hazardous components, and this costs money. So the question is, how do we create demand for waste? If we have the normal market, you take an ice cream, you want to produce an ice cream. You ask the market, does this ice cream has to be more sugary, more creamy, or how is it? Then you get your product, and your product, you know, with this product, I have success in the market, I can sell it. You have your technology and logistics, and you have your production costs, and you have your disposal costs. Okay, how can we introduce this mechanism in recycling market? And the key is, if I give to this appliance a manu value, in the moment it becomes waste. Then I have tomorrow 10, 20 entrepreneurs who say me, come on, give it to me, this is my business case. Again, in the normal market, as a consumer, you go to the retailer, you buy your product, you pay your money, it's directly. We have an advanced recycling fee that will say, when you buy your product, on your product, there is a recycling fee that goes to the recycling fund. And the collection points and the recycling companies are paid with from the recycling fund. That means you as a consumer, you don't have a direct connection to the recycling company, but to the recycling fund, and you need an organization to make this run. This is a bit complicated, and I like to talk about a golden square, which would be the key of long-term success. On one hand, you have producers, importers, retailers. They pay the recycling fee in the fund. The consumer pays when it buys its product to retailers. And then you have the recycling industry, logistics, dismantling. They want to be paid out of this fund. And of course, the governments of the nation, of the cantons, of the municipalities, they want to know what is happening in this square. And the key is transparency. I think transparency is the only thing that really you need to have confidence in the system you're building up. So, Sense e-recycling is a foundation. We do not belong directly to producers or importers. We are independent, neutral, non-for-profit. We are a producer responsibility organization, and we operate producer responsibility on behalf of producers as a take-back system for all electrical and electronic appliances, as you have heard before from Pedro Nazaré. And our cycle works as in all countries. The consumer buys, then after end of life, he brings it to a collection or take-back points. Then you have logistics, they bring it to recycling company, to dismantling companies, and the raw materials, they go again to producers, and producers make new products, go to retailers, and so on. And we'd like to have this as a closed loop. How do we make that? We have contracts with 880 producers, importers, and retailers. They produce or import directly appliances to Switzerland, and they bring it to the market. And we have cooperation with all important associations that in our branch. And then we have service agreements with 19 recycling companies. We have 620 collection points, and we have 15,000 points of sales. I will tell you later, every retailer in Switzerland is obliged to take back appliances from the sort that he's selling. So the advantage of the Sense-Zero recycling system for producers and importers, we are simple, efficient to fulfill producer responsibility. We are a take-back system with a high level of expertise and the quality standards. We are cost neutral. Producers pass on advanced recycling fees to consumers, and collection, electrical and equipment at every branch is free of charge for consumers. For the consumers, we have a very high convenience in Switzerland. So every shop where you can buy, you can give back. We have the 660 collection points. We have free return of all electrical and electronic equipment to retailers. And we guarantee as a system for environmentally friendly and professional recycling. So another key element is quality and efficient quality. I think we know all how scrap dealers work. Scrap dealers today in Switzerland, they have become very serious, very efficient, very quality, high quality recycling companies. But you need control. We have mandated for this quality and auditing very highly educated and independent environment professionals, and yearly, one in the year, every recycler gets audited. He has to make like a bookkeeping, open its book, and we know what is going in, what is going out, and where is it going. And we have a very clear overview how the pollution of hazardous components is made. We also audit collection points, but only every 2 years, for correct separation, according category, for using correct packaging, for good collection quality. And we try to improve our know-how and the know-how of our external experts on disassembling appliances that are destroying, on components, on fractions, on how to open markets for selling fractions. And we are very strongly working actually on automatic recognition technologies, which are artificial intelligence based, so we can really recognize what kind of appliances are coming back from which producers, so we can make a sorting and statistics that the producers know really what from the flow of recycling is coming back from their products. We have a legal basis, an ordinance, very small ordinance from 1st of July 98. It states two obligations. One for consumers to return. Consumers are obliged to return their electronic appliances to collection points or to a retailer.
Seems like Andreas has a bit of trouble connecting.
So we have no distinction between historical and new waste. We have in the ordinance no collection, recycling or recovery quotas. We make no distinction between household and commercial appliances. And we have just the obligation for producers, importers and retailers to manage and to finance. So the basic concept is, as long as industry in Switzerland assumes the extended producer responsibility, the government is restricted to the role of a supervisor. Something about our figures. We have processed in 2019 127,000 tons in Switzerland. This is only Sense, is our partners system, which is Lixo. Together, I think we are in the three top systems in Europe. And as we are 30 years old this year, we charged a very good company in Basel, Cargotech, who is doing life cycle analysis since many years. And we asked them to calculate what are the environmental benefits of 30 years of Sensi recycling. Here you have the picture. On the right side, we have the materials. So we have 660,000 tons of iron. We have 30,000 tons of aluminium. We have 40,000 tons of copper. Totally, we have 830,000 tons of recycled materials. And now look at the left side, and it's amazing. This 830,000 tons represents just 0.5% of our environmental impact, what we have fulfilled. And the rest is the pollution, the rest is the pollution of hazardous component, hazardous substances, CFC, VHC, PCB, mercury, and flame retardants. And I go back once again to this picture because it's really amazing. You have this amount of our really huge environmental impact. It's 150 billion load points of environmental impact. It's a calculation that these companies are making today. It's a huge amount, but depollution is really one of the key when you build up a system, when you try to make circular economy. It also means, when we're talking about circular economy starts with the depolluted product that goes in the market. And I think we have to invest huge of thinkings and in innovations to go to this goal. So Philip said we have been involved in the founding of the B Forum. I could be president of the B Forum 2008 2012, and it's really a very good organization. We have been setting the standards for Europe. We have been setting up reporting systems so everybody can compare what he's doing, and it's a very good network. So you know all your colleagues around Europe. We have also been active in founding We Europe, which is a company in Munich, a one-stop shop for companies, producers, importers, and want to sell products in European countries. So, you know, in every European country, you have to report, you have to register, you have to pay. And if you are going to 28 different countries, it's a quite complicated process. So Europe is taking charge of all the duties you have to do when you go to a European market. At the end, just we made a short movie with 5 episodes. It's in Swiss German, of course, but it's nice to see it show how we really have been building up the system in Switzerland. So this is from my part. I hope I could give you some inputs of what could be key factors in building up a system that is having a chance for good success. Thank you again for invitation to this webinar. I'm very pleased. When you have questions afterwards, I will be on for you. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, Andreas. Well, thanks a lot, really, for your presence here. And actually, I'd like to use the opportunity to also say that all of the speakers that are involved are doing this on a voluntary basis. So we actually initiated the opportunity to contribute in another way to the event. And in my session here, the QR code that I think we're putting up will be a contribution to Médicos Sem Fronteiras. So I would really appreciate if you were able to contribute a bit, given that we're organizing this session also with the voluntary contribution of all of them. And maybe just a quick remark also on Andreas' session. I think it got a little flickery once he was talking about the institutional environment in Switzerland. So I think it's an important point that I'd just like to complement, which is as he was talking about the sense system setting its own pace, and somewhat by doing this, being able to be ahead of the curve in a way among the legislators, so, which meant that sense has the liberty and a certain freedom to define how the take-back system in Switzerland works, and by tackling the right issues, by focusing on quality control, by anticipating a lot of the needs required, they were able to set a system up that is under very low guidance from in terms of the legislation that is guiding it. So I think that's an important point also to complement that I think was getting missed maybe in the part where it was flickering. So Andreas, once again, thanks a lot. I'd like to get back actually on your role on the WE forum, but before we do that, we have our last speaker, and our last speaker is from France, and we've chosen France because they have impressive numbers. Also using the opportunity to congratulate Christian on these impressive numbers. As we know, France is a country that has roughly a third of the population of Brazil. We're talking about 70 million people, roughly. And Christian, under the ecosystem, which now is called ecosystem, Christian has been the president of or the general manager of the ecosystem since 2005. So he's within the system for over 15 years. He's formerly been the president of Whirlpool in France, also serving for another 10 years. And so we're pretty much looking at a country manager that is at the helm of an ecosystem, literally, using the name, that is collecting impressive numbers of electronic waste, that has been able to evolve sort of into a leading institution, I think, in the WE Forum, in terms of not only the collection performance, but also the operational and the environmental performance. So we're very happy to have you here, Christian, and I'm looking very much forward to hear from you and your insights that you have to share with us.
Hello, thank you to all. Hello, I'm very happy to participate in this conference and to have been invited. I will go along the presentation I've prepared and to talk about what we have been along the 15 years and what we achieve, and also what as a lesson we can take to. I know that you are going in the process of establishing pros and things like that, and it's good that you share with us our experience. So I'm going to share with you. Let me check a moment. I'm looking for, sorry. Let me check. Yes, I cannot see. No, yes, but I don't see the sharing.
I'm going to take the opportunity also
Yes.
compliment
Yes. Let me check this one. Okay, but again,
maybe we will resolve it quickly.
doesn't come through.
Well, Christian, no problem. I think you can try to figure the technical part out with our colleagues. I'm
Yes,
using
I have the green button on the bottom that share the screen. This is what I'm doing, but I don't see the presentation. I'm sorry.
Well, let's just give it a quick moment then to see whether we can solve it.
Yes, if I go to the below this one, yes, I'm doing that. I don't see.
Christian, I'll use the opportunity to talk a bit about an aspect of the WE forum while you're trying to figure out how to connect better, and I think my colleagues are going to help you in that. But I was going to mention also, I think, a very interesting initiative that exists in the WE forum since the beginning is an initiative of sharing data. And this is pretty much about the cost of operating systems, so the cost of logistics, the cost of collecting e-waste, the cost of recycling e-waste, also the cost of managing e-waste as a producer responsibility organization. And there's an impressive collection of data that is being collected since 2005. And while it is not publicly available, it is still, there's a lot of interaction, I think. And probably the WE forum is a good institution also to address once someone is interested in learning more about the economic figures of these systems, which are shared there among all the European and international participants. So maybe we can get back to Christian. Do you think you're ready on your talk?
I cannot have access to.
Maybe we can just go without the presentation, Christian, and we're just going to have a conversation.
Sorry.
And you can maybe talk a bit about this within a dialogue that you can have with me, while we're trying to maybe get the presentation somewhat in a different way to work.
I'm very sorry. So what I've wanted to say is that first of all, ecosystem has 4 accredited activities. The one which is about household WE, which represents 232 million euro as a contribution, which is by far the main activity. Then we have lamps with a 25 million euro contribution. Then we have professional we, which is B2B and sometimes it's called commercial we, which is represent 10 million euro contribution. And then a very small activity, which is based on small extinguisher, which represent 1.3 million activities. So, and if we talk about tonnage, we'll come later, it's around, for the household we, it's 600,000 tons per year. So last year was. Then I have a slide which is very similar to the one of Pedro about a producer. We have founded the ecosystem. We have 41 producers. And the particularity is that we have 3 colleges, one for household we, one for professional we, and one for lamps. And for the domestic, for household we, there is something which is probably a bit different than in many other pro, is that we have, from the beginning, we have involved in the governance retailers to really part of the governance for 2 reasons. First of all, because they are producer, and the more we go, the more we see they've introduced their own label, and so sometimes they are importing product from another country, so they are considered as a producer. And secondly, they are key in the area of collecting from the consumer, because they are obliged to implement the 1-for-1. Each time you sell a product, the retailer is obliged to take it back if the consumer wants to have it back to the retailers. So the companies that are, the name of the company are, most of them international company, and sometimes local, large and small, the same for retailer, for manufacturer. Then I had a kind of circle to see the circular economy. We start as our job start in informing consumers about what to do with the we. Then so this is about communication campaign. Then we have a strong commitment to the social economy, specifically for reuse and activities. So we organize and finance reuse activities with organization from the social economy. Then we develop a collecting solution, and the collect is done from municipal collection point, social economy, and retail store. So, and we have in total 25,000 collection points in France. Then we organize, control, and finance the logistic and recycling operation. And we have to organize that. We have operators, recyclers, and also waste companies that we are managing to make good quality recycling. And then we have also a lot of support to the producer, specifically to improve eco-design in 2 areas, to improve the design of the product to be easiest, to have an easy way to recycle it, and also to reuse materials that were containing in we product. So to have a kind of closed loop with some producers. The next chart that you cannot see, but this is about how we organize ecosystem as far as data flows and financial flows. So we have a IT platform which is taking care of the upstream, means the relation with producers, and the put on the market declaration, and the audit we do to audit the declaration, and also the payment we get from the producer. We in total we have more than 4,200 producers. On the downstream side, we have another platform under everything is under SAP, and this downstream platform manage all end user consumer about the we, so from wholesaler, retailers, distributors, municipalities, social economy, 25,000 collection points. Then we have all the contract with waste company, logistic and treatment operators, where we do tender offer. We have audit for the quality with European standards, which are the WILABEX standard, and now there are even norms in Europe. And we have 650 logistic treatment operators and waste companies that we have guaranteed with them. And then this is the internal organization. And we have also a strong relation with public authorities. As to operate in France, we need an accreditation. And the accreditation is given for a 6-year period. And so every 6 years, we have to go back to make an accreditation process. And then we have to do a lot of reporting. But this is a very transparent organization we show, and also some control. Then you will not see, this is from where we went in 2006, where for the first year it was 1.5 months only. We started 15 November 2006, and up to now, about put on the market. So I would say from 2007 to 2014, it was quite flat with more than 1 million tons put on the market every year. And then starting in 2015, it started to grow, because last year we were at almost 1,300 million tons, so almost 300,000 tons more. This came from open scope, opening new EE categories like heating boilers, like cables, and many other activities that were involved. And also we have seen a huge increase in some market, specifically air conditioning, that is a growing market in France. As I know in Brazil you have it since many years, but in France it's something that were not used in houses. Clearly it was used in offices and things like that, but not in houses. So this is only for household equipment. Then the next start was about the collection level. We started the first year, 1.5 months, we collected 10,000 tons, and the second year, 70,000 tons. And last year we reached almost 599, so 600,000 tons in 2019. So it's a great achievement with huge growth regularly. Specifically, when we went to our third accreditation period, starting in 2014, we decided to enlarge a collection point. At the beginning, we started only with retailers, social economy, and municipal collection point. And we decided to involve as well the scrap dealers and metal merchants. They are getting away from the curbside. When consumer put the fridge or the old washing machine on the curbside, and during the night there are people taking, in France it's mostly gypsies, who are collecting away and are selling to metal merchant and scrap dealers. And also sometimes it's just consumer bringing to scrap dealers just to get few euros to sell their product. And so those companies were not involved in the process. So we decided we have found an agreement with those organizations. Now we have more than 500 scrap dealers dealing with us. So the target for us was to be sure that those products that were not in our hands have to be treated well mainly in car shredders that are WILABEX registered, so to be sure that those volumes are treated well with a good depollution, and as well to get the recycling ratio. So this helped us to grow in the collection, because in 2014 we were almost at 400,000 tons, and now we are at 600,000 tons. Then as far as the calculation of the target from the WE directive, it started with 2 kilograms per year per inhabitant. Then until 2014, it was 4 kilograms per year an inhabitant. So we have been almost always above. And now since 2015, the target is calculated, is based on the what you have to collect for 1 year has to be based, calculate as the average of the put on the market of the three previous years. So when you have long life cycle products like we have in major domestic appliance, in small appliance, it's a calculation that is quite huge. And so since 2 years now, we are not reaching the target. We are at 52 instead of the target is 65%. We are at 62, but still we have huge number. Then as it will be sent to you, I'm sorry, the level of collection for different product flow like household but fridge, from small appliance, for fridge and TV. We have ratio, the highest ratio of return rate is with the TV with the 87%. That is still due to CRT TV that we still collect. Then the collection channels, as I was telling you, we have 25,000 in the retail, 25,000 collection point. It's 11,000 for household, of which retailers are collecting 20% of the volume, municipalities 53%, the social economy is 5%, and the metal merchant is 22%. So of the 600,000 points. Then the next one was about explaining the flow of volumes that were treated, and just some numbers. It's quite a complex. I make it simple, but it's much more complex that you would have been able to see on the presentation. We have 650,000 pickup per year. We have an organization with 85 break bulk centers where we collect from municipalities, retailers, and they're coming back to the break bulk centers, and then they are displayed to the factory dedicated to TV recycling or fridge recycling and so on. We have 90 treatment sites, and from the break bulk centers to the treatment site, we have 50,000 transport per year. Then I was showing you the cost, how it is when a consumer paying €1 for a vacuum cleaner, for example, how we split the cost. 70% of the cost are operating costs, meaning transport, depollution, recycling, R&D, and so 70% of the cost is there. Almost 20% is made to compensate the collection point, so local authorities like municipalities, retailers, to give them a part of to cover part of their cost of collecting product from the consumer. So in total, I would say the operational cost is 90% of the total cost of ecosystem. Then we have 7% for information. This is about waste prevention, incentive to recycle campaigns, and also some display. We have to collect lamps and also small products that we have implemented in retail. Then there is only 4% of management costs, which means salary, organization, office, IT system. So it's quite small compared to many companies. And so we have a very efficient organization. Then if I move to communication campaigns, with a new name, Ecosystems, that has been launched last year, we have also a new tagline, which is recycle to protect. This is a strong commitment to this new tagline, because recycle for us is a very extensive interpretation of recycling. This starts from repair, reuse, and recycle. And when we say recycle, is recycle to depollute, but also recycle in order to reuse material. And as far as the protection is concerned, it's about to protect environment, to protect the health, to protect natural resources, and to protect employment, as we know that if most of the electronic products are produced somewhere in China or somewhere else, recycling job and reuse job are there locally in France and cannot be sent to foreign organizations and countries. Then my last point, another summary and some recommendation. By the way, yes, sorry, on the ecosystem and the recycling, the protecting, you have a link on the bottom of the chart, a link to the TV campaign in clicking. So if the organization can send it to you, you will be able to see this movie. This is the last campaign. Then, as a summary, what are my recommendations when you are thinking to implement some pros in a country, or at least a circular economy approach? Towards the stakeholders, I will, when I said about stakeholders, is every from NGOs to producers to retailers to recyclers and things, and all the stakeholders that you have around a pro. You have to be convinced that the visible fee is a must. This is the best way to create awareness all along the chain, from manufacturers to retailers to the consumer. So it makes a good awareness of to the consumer that if he's paying something, he wants to have a good recycling behind. And this is also key because it brings a good security level for the financing of the pro. And we know that to get good quality, you need to be paid because there is a cost in treating we. For the producers, I will recommend do not create too many pros. We have huge experience in Europe, and I would say two large countries, Germany and the UK, have many pros, up to 40 in the UK, for example. And in Germany, it's even there is no pro exactly. This is a producer themselves. So there are fierce competition, very low price paid to treatment operators, and at the end, very poor quality, and even a large part of export to illegal, to international export, like probably you have seen sites in Africa, like the Ghana, where you have a very poor treatment of wool. So it's key for you producers that you need to, the pro is there to protect your image towards this kind of practices. And so when you have too many competition, it brings back the price. Of course, you can say it's a good way to have low price, low fees, but with low fees, you do poor quality. So you have to be convinced that competition in this field is maybe not necessary, or you have to have few competition in order to be able to rate. In France, we have competitors, but we are doing everything together, because if we are against each other, the market and the value of the product will decrease. Then for pros, create an added value organization. Don't run for poor quality, or run for high quality. It's key to implement quality standards and norms for recycling. You have to create a level playing field, otherwise operators will offer you low price but with poor quality. So the level playing field, a good standard with audit, as Andreas was saying, I was very involved with Switzerland and other countries in setting up at European level quality standards. Then for authorities, my recommendation, you have to set a solid legal framework in order to set clear objectives for the pros, the producer, to make control, and also to be able to run after illegal practices and be able to sue the illegal practice, typically products that are not depolluted well, that are not treated well, or even maybe not in Brazil. It's not happening in Brazil, but it's happening in Europe, export to Asia or Africa with very, very poor standard of quality. So this is my point. I'm very sorry that I was not able to show you my slide, but I've seen that some of them have been shown to you. Okay, thank you again, and good luck to implement a good system in Brazil and good practices. And I know that your objectives are quite achievable at the beginning. So good. I wish you a good chance to make a good success in your country.
I'll take that as a recommendation and good wishes for all of our participants. And thanks again a lot, Christian, for coming here and participating. I think we're going to be able to stick together your presentation afterwards, as we're going to make all of them available afterwards. Also, probably with a legend, so people from here can understand it a bit easier. And we're going to have it in Portuguese together with the presentation. And as we're now entering the Q&A session, I'd like to get back maybe to Pedro, which I can see over there. He's here. Pedro, hi, can you hear me? Is your microphone on?
I could hear you, but I couldn't speak because I was muted. I'm fine, Phil.
Great. Pedro, when we discussed the preparation of the webinar, I asked you to get a bit into the details of collection channels, of how you're solving this in Portugal, and you did, I think, a very good job in bringing these numbers. And I'd still like to give you a bit more time to talk about like how you get people to discard correctly, because that's been an issue that we've been discussing and talking about quite a lot in terms of the role of the consumer here in Brazil. How do we get him, how do we set incentives maybe to bring back the electronic waste, especially in a separate way, so we don't have to dig it out of the municipal solid waste stream. I know that Elektral has done quite a few initiatives. You mentioned a few also event-based activities that you do. And I remember also this has been already somewhat of a topic even by the time that I interacted with Am13 about 15 years ago, where I talked to a colleague, Monica Luisa, which is still with you. And we've been discussing in the WE forum about collection rates. So I'd be curious to hear how the last 15, and especially 5 years, worked out on this. Maybe you can talk a bit more about the discard process and like how you get people involved to discard in a proper manner.
Okay. Well, let me take your question focusing on two aspects. One, in terms of supplying on the supply side, and the other one on the demand side. From the supply side, I would say that we need to offer every time more a very, let's say, high quality collection network and a good collection service. Most of European countries, they rely on municipalities and retailers to their volumes. We just hear the Christian sharing, I don't know, 60 or 70% of the volumes from ecosystem arising just from municipalities and retailers, if I learned well the figures from Christian. Well, here in Portugal, this is Southern Europe, things are a little bit different, or more southern than France, sorry, Christian. And municipalities and retailers, they were not delivering such a high percentage of e-waste. And therefore, we embarked on a strategy in offering different collection channels, such as the one we have described, in schools, in firemen, in companies. So we have all these different channels, which we consider what we call a private collection network, to increase our e-waste collection volumes. So this is more focusing on the supply side, which is very much in control of the take-back system or of the PRO. But then we work also on the demand side of these collection points, meaning we need to provoke a change in behavior in consumers and in companies. And for that, we have, let's say, one basic tool, which is the communication and awareness expenditure. And let me tell you, we have been spending, for the level of Portugal, millions of euros in communication and awareness, targeting different groups of the Portuguese society, in schools, in universities, for grown-up people. I mean, we have covered and we have targeted in communication and awareness campaigns, I would say, the vast majority of the Portuguese population. And these campaigns go around, of course, teasing people to change their behavior, but also provoking people, giving incentives for them to change behavior. Let me just give you a brief example. We have a collection campaign which runs in schools, in which we offer prizes to the schools or to the group of schools that collects the most e-waste during a certain period. This is just one example. So just to sum up and to answer your question, we've worked in terms of quality of service on one hand, and on the other hand, in changing behavior of people at the same time. So both sides of this equation have to be worked out so you can increase volumes. And you could see from the graph I've just shown that volumes are increasing, but not at the pace we would like them to increase, of course.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's a constant challenge. I'd use the opportunity also to bring Christian in back again on this, since you already mentioned him. And he's not in the southern part of Europe, but he's also struggling with the numbers, though he is on a very high collection rate. But there's been a specific point also, which is about the involvement of somewhat the informal sector or the scrap dealers, which I think got quite a push in the French system. So Christian, maybe you can comment a bit on that and elaborate in general on the issue or the challenge to get people to discard correctly and to increase these rates. As I see, you've been struggling with this, and I'm sure you've been putting in place a bunch of strategies to increase the rate.
Yes, thank you. We in France, at a certain level, we see that through retailers, municipalities, and social economy, there will be a plateau, kind of plateau. So we needed something new, and we had identified at that time that 1,000 scrap dealers, metal merchants were on the market, and they were sending directly to the product that were mixed with some other metal article. And so what we have taken as an agreement, we said we want good traceability, we want good treatment, and we are ready that you keep your business together with, you buy from the gypsies, okay, you sell to the car shredder company or something like that. What we want is at each step we want traceability. So we said we have identified 4 points where they could have additional cost. The first one, we said we want to know from whom you got your you buy your metal and your wheat. Then, so there is an additional cost to make this traceability. Then we want you to sort the wheat from the other metallic part, or every other metal part. Then we want you to send the wheat to the car shredder that are under the Willabex organization without compressing the product. Of course, it generates an additional cost, and this additional cost we are going to cover. And then the last step was to say we want you to go to car shredders that are registered, that are Willabex organized, and they have the label to be sure that the treatment will be okay. And then it's additional cost as well. So at the 4th point, we said, what is your additional cost? And we have defined an agreement with them to pay at each step the additional cost they have. And they, of course, they should register within our system the volume and the what they keep. And then we are in link with the car shredder, and we know exactly what has been sent, what has been arrived, so we can control the weight and be sure that it's really wheat that has been treated. So with this agreement, we have reached now more than 150,000 tons additional in 4 years, and it's quite successful. There are still, as I was saying, we have 500 contracts with 500 companies, and there are still, of course, some are smaller, but we are still illegal companies that are sending maybe abroad and or treating the product not in a good way. So we are running after those, but there we need more, I would say, help from the government to make the police and the legal and to penalize those companies that are not in the system, working with the system. So this is maybe something that could be implemented in other countries as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Also, I think it's important to mention again maybe a bit of the metrics, because when we talk about these collection rates, we always relate them, at least in Europe, it's been a sort of a way of dealing with this. So we relate them to the volumes that are put on the market, and the European directives targets are pretty much focused on getting a certain percentage of the volume put on the market back. So in your case, just to reframe that we were talking about 600,000 tons in 2019, and this representing in terms of percentage put on the market 52% of what 50%. Has been put on the market, right? So it's been quite a great achievement, and I think it can only be topped by one country that is small in size. So the nominal size, I think, goes to you, Christian, but the per capita rate might go to Andreas. I'm giving you the word, Andreas, since we've actually been looking into quite marvelous collection rates per capita in Switzerland. And here in Brazil, I can say it because I'm German, but here in Brazil, we think of Switzerland as a country where everything works very well and fine. It seems like the collection of electronic waste belongs also into this paradigm. And maybe you can just give us a bit of insight of why you think this is and how you managed to achieve these great rates within Switzerland.
I think crap dealers have been living in the Middle Age, and in the Middle Age they got the arms of the dead soldiers, and they made new arms from it. And so they were here before we came with our system. And this, I think, when we started in Switzerland, we analyzed and we recognized very quickly that we are entering in a market that is already covered. They did their job. And Switzerland is small. We knew very quickly all of them. And we tried to involve them from the beginning. And I think this was one of the key that we got very soon, very good volumes. And the issue was, how can we bring them to make a good job in the sense of depollution of hazardous components and transparency. And Christian can sing a song about this, because transparency in the field of scrap dealers is not very easy, but I can say in Switzerland we have really, today they are on our level. They talk with us on our level. They make very good job, quality-wise a good job, and maybe there's one or two that you never get in. But I think this an internal education of a branch that was not used to work in this manner. And today they are really, I mean, there are companies that are really clean. You can go anytime in this, and they have a huge degree of transparency reached that is admirable. So I think, Christian, you mentioned 2 countries in Europe that are not doing, let's say, a very excellent job, but the problems there are because transparency is not given, and of course, if you have a frame that does not allow that as a company you can cover your costs to make the quality that is asked, then you have a problem.
Christian, feel free to comment back on that if you wanted.
Yes, what I can say is based on what Andreas, because in fact the true story is that I went to Switzerland to understand how Switzerland was able to reach such a high target in collection. And Andreas told me that the story he was telling us to say he was involving scrap dealer, merchant, metal merchant from the early beginning. We were fearing those guys because some have a bad reputation and things like that. But what we have discovered working with them, that because now more and more you have a new generation. The beginning, those scrap dealers were there were no process and things like that. Now you see that some of them have responsibility on social and social and ecological responsibility. They are doing a very good job with good transparency. We ask them to implement in their system traceability and things like that. And now some of those companies are very good company, and as Andreas said, so don't fear that sometimes scrap dealers cannot move to something that is more with better traceability, good quality, and things like that. So this was our feeling at the beginning, and we decided to move on, and it is a success, clearly. But of course, you have some cost because you need to pay them. They have additional cost. But this, we know that to treat a wee product, there are costs. You get some revenue, but the costs are higher than the revenue. So in total, there is a cost.
Also, maybe a point that might be interesting to mention. I think I remember even from the work that we did together, Andreas, on the hedging system for actually scrap dealers. By the time 2006, and I think, Andreas, you mentioned it in your talk, that it's a lot about fairness within the system. So you have a very inclusive approach. Just to cite an example, by the time we've been working together on a hedging system that would actually put in place a mechanism to pay the scrap dealers for their work with a system that would involve the scrap prices. So there would be somewhat of a leveling out of the highly volatile pricing that they were facing. And so by doing that, it would give them a more secure environment to work in economic terms, which I think is one of the examples, which if you want to comment a bit on that, Andreas, has made the Swiss system a big success.
Okay, I think it's Switzerland and the Swiss population is very disciplined. Huh? So I think we are world champion in collecting glass and paper and whatever you want. And I think maybe we are talking about producer responsibility. This is one hand. On the other hand, we have to talk also about consumer responsibility. Consumers are able to go in a retail shop and they buy a very complex IT or another equipment with needs much knowledge to go home and to compone it and to make it work. So they can also have the responsibility to bring back each item that has to be brought back to a special place. And I think the awareness in the population and maybe also the climate movement that is going on actually. The young people are becoming very conscious about what is environment and what do we leave to the next generation as a base for life.
Philip, allow me for a comment. I think one critical aspect for the success story with car shredders and with scrap dealers has to do with having the regulation and the legislation in place, number one, and true strong enforcement and enforcement taken seriously in the country about this legislation and regulation. Because we have had talks also with our shredders here and with our scrap dealers, and we are talking about commingled scrap, which contains small domestic appliances, air conditioning, large household appliances, even fridges and some other components of e-waste. And we were not able to make them segregate the fraction of e-waste from the rest of the scrap to secure a proper depollution process and recycling process. So, and of course, we have the legislation in place. The Portuguese problem is the enforcement. But I would guess that Brazil could face similar difficulties when talking with the scrap sector, because as Andreas mentioned, they were here before we started in 2006, and they were here since the Middle Ages or even before. And what we have done is we've stepped into their business, and some of them, they were able to, update their technologies and their procedures and follow, let's say, the new rules of the game. But some others did not, and they are still very representative in the waste management sector, dealing, I would say, let me say this side comment, which is, I typically say in every presentation I go, we do not have in Portugal a collection problem, though I cannot report a proper collection rate, because e-waste is not in the beach or the mountainside or the countryside. The e-waste in Portugal is being almost collected, but the problem is delivering a proper treatment to this e-waste and delivering a proper recycling process to the e-waste. And I think the same could go in Brazil as well. And this is the biggest challenge, is to be able to deliver this proper treatment of the e-waste and segregate the critical fractions of the e-waste. The new rules of the game, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
If I can tell something, add something to Pedro talk, there are two ways. The first one is to implement a standard for treatment, to have a level playing field. And it has to be part of the law to say it's mandatory for every recycler to use a standard. I think there are only 3 countries in Europe.
Christian, I think your connection got a little freaky as well. Maybe we go on also talking back to Pedro. So Pedro, can you still hear me? Or
very good if you have that in the law as a mandatory to treat recycled product. And the second one, there is another way to do it, is to have a mandatory handover to the pro system. So every company that is dealing with has to is by law.
Christian, we do have a bit of difficulty hearing you, so I might just try to wrap it up, and we'll get you and the comments back on the video feed. But yeah, I mean, in general, I was also going to put a last question about the Eco Design Directive, as Pedro mentioned.
To reach the recycling ratio and to reach also the depollution. What Andreas was saying as a report on the environment is key, that the impact on the air, the impact on due to the CO2, and all this impact of some fractions that are in the product are just having a good, strong impact on the environment. So this is another way to have, why I said, a strong legal framework is key to make a success.
Maybe I would like to add, I don't know if you can hear me, I would like to add that Christian could make a whole presentation about how to treat and how to work together with authorities. I have been following very many of the European legislation, but I must say none is such specific, well done as the French legislation. And I think as you are a European country, and I think also in Brazil, the French legislation could be a very good example, because also the French authorities are willing to fulfill and to persecute what they have done. In Switzerland, I can say we have a very good relation to the government. They gave us relatively a wide space for fulfilling our duties, and we have the obligation. We have another character in the, I think, another tradition in the population for collectors.
Well, thank you. I think we might have missed a bit of your contributions in the last minutes, but as we're running out of time, I'd like to take the opportunity to wrap it up quickly. Thank you for your contribution. It's been a great pleasure interacting with you here. And also take the opportunity to thank the team here, the opportunity to be part of this workshop that is run and organized by CESP. Also thank the team that is behind this, a lot of people that have been working to make this happen. And give a quick overview, maybe a brief idea of what we're going to see next. We've been talking about the quality issues, and Pedro mentioned that that he's struggling within his system to guarantee depollution standards and all that. He's been mentioning the WLABX and the Senelex standard, which are standards that we use in Europe to organize and mandate how recycling should happen. And we're going to hear in the next session also a bit about this. It's going to be about standards. We're going to have actually the view of different stakeholders. We're going to have someone talking on policies. I think we're going to have someone talking about the entrepreneurial view. We're going to have someone talking about the standards that I just mentioned. And we're going to be having a new moderator, which is going to be Vanderlei Nuhus. Vanderlei is at the helm of a producer responsibility organization here in Brazil. He's been with Whirlpool for quite a lot of time, a very experienced management member, and he's getting engaged in this new pro, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very interesting session. Look forward to accompany it and hope you will do it as well. Thanks a lot.